O God, please guide me. So, this is a attempt at writing a book I tried years ago. Many frustrating hours, many have been put into this. So, this is the Great Pyramid of Egypt. You can see the internal passageway system inside it, and you can see the 4 air shafts, they call it. 2 on the north side, 2 on the south side. Here one's blue and the other side is red. You can see the Horn of Africa. Looks like a horn on a person's head. And you can see the Nile River, which flows north. And the lake, Lake Victoria, that it flows from. I made it look like an eye to accentuate that Africa looks like a human face to me. And at the mouth of the Nile, at that triangle, at the very top of the triangle, which is upside down, there lies the Great Pyramid. Isaiah wrote, "In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar, or pyramid, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry unto the Lord because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Savior and a great one, and he shall deliver them." Isaiah 19:19 through 20. So here I explain that, it's at the border of Egypt and it's in the middle of Egypt, in the midst of it, because there's an ancient land border that's elevated. It's like a plateau or a cliff. It's in the midst of Egypt. It's not at one of its borders, but it's also considered an ancient border of Upper Egypt from Lower Egypt. This is elevation-wise. Upper Egypt is actually in the south. So the prophecy is fulfilled. The Great Pyramid fulfills that prophecy very clearly. Here's the entrance to the Great Pyramid. You can see the 2 men at the bottom are standing in front of the basement sheet, this very thick floor. It's enormous. It's so powerful. And the Great Pyramid, as you can see, Isaiah calls it a witness to the Lord. It's sacred. It's holy. It contains information about the covenant. It's not to be worshipped. Nothing on earth is to be worshipped. Only God is to be worshipped. So in the Great Pyramid, you see it has this internal passageway system. And the entrance passage starts from the outside and it descends down. Here it's marked red. That's at a certain angle, because at a certain time in history, that passage pointed to the pole star, which is unique from any other star in the world. It's the central star that you could see, and it doesn't move around. All the other stars, you look up in the sky, they'll move around, they'll rotate, but this one is fixed. And that's because the Earth's axis points right to it. So this is a scientifically deducible chosen star, and it's special to us on Earth, especially at that time in history. So this diagram shows that it points to that central star. It's in Draco, the constellation Draco's tail. And it points to that star because the angle of the passageway, the entranceway, is 26 degrees, 27 minutes. Now, if you go 90 degrees from that angle, it points to Alcyon. Historically, in mythology, it was believed to be the center of the universe. It's a star located in the constellation Taurus. At its shoulder, this is significant, the shoulder stands out in different ways. But it's in the shoulder of the bull, Taurus. And it's a member of the Pleiades, the seven sisters, the seven stars. These seven stars are known for being very beautiful, and they stand out. And again, nothing on heaven or earth is to be worshipped but the one true God. This relationship here that's being pointed out in the Great Pyramid, in my opinion, it shows that the Great Pyramid chronology is accurate. It's a verification sign, and I'll show you that soon. So even these numbers are sacred. 63 is when Baha'u'llah began his ministry. Jesus was 26 years old when he was baptized in the River Jordan. And this is affirmed by Daniel. And the value 63 is 1290 years, lunar years on the Islamic calendar, from when Muhammad began his private ministry. And 1290 is an important symbol, as I get into in my other videos. It's the number that Jesus pointed to involving his return at the end of Daniel. So, why are we going 90 degrees? Well, you go back from the entrance of the Great Pyramid, you go back a certain number of inches, and there's a scored line sketched in the walls perfectly and with great precision, 90 degrees from the entrance angle. So you have a 180 degree azimuth. And what I did is I went in this program called Stellarium, which lets you go back in time and look at the arrangement of the stars and planets. And I saw that, yes, at this date and time, there was an exact alignment with Alcyon as well as the pole star, Thuban. Alcyon is it Hampstead value is 25, and Thuban's value is 11. Here's a picture of one of the Edgar brothers in the entrance passage, also known as a descending passage. Edgar and Edgar were two great doctors who traveled to Egypt and made very precise and very careful measurements in the subterranean level. Very accurate, very scholarly. They did great work. And this is the, let's get rid of this, if at all possible. That's what I entered in. That's the time I went to find the alignments that I did. You can reproduce my work using Stellarium and see for yourself. See with your own eyes. Don't take my word on it. As they used to say in Reading Rainbow. So there's the Great Pyramid. You see all the different colors of the air shafts pointing to the constellations. Here I go into more detail about what each side points to. So one side is pointing to Draco. One shaft points to the pole star. It's a little bit off, as you can see here. The other side points to the next star in the Draco constellation. If you draw a line between these 2 points and you look at a snake's body, see, Draco is a constellation that represents a snake or a dragon, and the snake is anatomically in proportion, exactly proportion with the constellation. You'll see that the organ that's between these 2 lines is the snake's penis. It has 2 penises, and it's underneath the skin. So on the other side, you have the constellation Orion. Now it's called Orion, and there's maybe mythological lore about some deity named Orion. I don't know anything about that, but I don't care about any myths about false gods and multiple gods. That's all nonsense. But the constellation of Orion was based on something. I recall vaguely that Adam was told to name various things in the world, like to name the animals. I'm not sure, but was he told to name the stars as well? So the constellations, they have their existence has real meaning. There is real significance to them. It's not just pagan stuff. And in the constellation Orion that they call Orion is actually shaped like a man, and it really stands out more than the other constellations. It stands out for actually looking like what it represents. It looks like a man, and the bow that he's holding, it really looks like a bow. You see like half of the bow in this picture is drawn out, but it continues. Perhaps the stars in it are very bright and distinct, and it's shaped like a bow, and it's well formed. So the shoulder here, the top left shoulder, is red. It's a red star. It really stands out. It's named Betelgeuse. And the belt in Orion also stands out, and it has an orientation. It's oriented to be in the same pattern as the Great Pyramid is oriented with the 2 pyramids that are next to it. And the star that represents the Great Pyramid here is circled green in Orion's belt. You can see that. That's called Alnitak, top left corner. And if you look at there is an air shaft pointing straight to Alnitak, which represents the Great Pyramid. And there's another air shaft that points to this star that's circled green that's named Thabit. Thabit means steadfast, like steadfast in faith. This is all about the covenant. So now we can't see it in this picture as well, but Thabit is one bright star, another bright star is next to it, and it looks like the testicles of this man, this stick figure of a man. And if you draw a line between the two stars that are being pointed at this point in time, um, what that line passes over is the only, and this is significant, like scientifically, it's the only place in the universe where stars are born that can be seen with the naked eye. This place is called a nebula. So there are many nebulas in the universe, but this is the only one we can see without a telescope. It's called Orion's Nebula. And yeah, it's the place where stars are born, and it represents fertility. So here I show that these measurements taken by some of the original most famous measurers of the Great Pyramid are Smith and Petrie. So Sir Flanders Petrie was a very famous scholar, Egypt scholar. Um, his work is well known, and these measurements were taken by him. And he was actually a critic, and he was a skeptic of the Great Pyramid chronology, but he took some measurements. And these are measurements of the 4 air shafts. And later, they sent a robot up the air shafts. It took measurements also. You can see they match up pretty well. And here are the measurements of these stars, where these stars would have been at around 2500 BC. Here is listed more around 2499 BC. Now, these measurements, as far as time goes, as far as the precession algorithms goes in Stellarium, there's a range. So this date was chosen out of what could have been a few other years. But there is a range. So I just want to be upfront and make that clear. So these values here, they line closely. They line very well to the values in the air shaft, to an extent. I'm looking at the last one, which is red, and it doesn't line up as well. So as you can see, yeah, I may have pointed that out earlier. Look at the red line, and it's a little bit off. And that may be because it doesn't point exactly to that star, Thuban. It points near it. So this may not be, this may be an indication that it's not really stars we're aiming for here, but it's actually the exact anatomical location of the snake's penis. And likewise, on the other side, this is clearly pointing out the location of this stick figure man, Orion's penis, as well. So this is pointing out 5 different alignments that happen around 2499 BC, 2498 BC. So first, in 2141 BC, you had the descending or entrance passage aligned to the pole star, and that's shown with the red line. And if you go now, let's see. So that may represent the very beginning of the entrance passage, as you see at the top of the blue basement sheet, the floor of the entrance passage. And if you go 357 pyramid inches down the entrance passage, there's a scored line, and that would mark a certain time in history. Let's see, 2141 plus 357, do the math in your head. You'll get 2498 BC, when the 4 air shafts went into alignment. So this, to me, it seems to represent a relationship between the pyramid inch and the year, and it's indicating this. You can see this with your mind's eye, with your thought, your intellect, and abstract thought, that this is, in a way, showing right at the entrance. It's showing what a pyramid inch is in a very special way that we can only figure out today with the understanding of precession and going back in time and seeing the geometric arrangement of the stars way back then. It's putting the measure at the gate, as the prophecy says. So let's look at it a different way here. This is showing at the bottom Draco the dragon, or the snake. Looks kind of like a snake, right? And here's an artist's rendition of it. This shows a little more information. I got these screenshots from Stellarium about, information about each star, and I put a color around it. Oh, down here you could see the alignment of the pyramids. The Great Pyramid is the one at the bottom left, and it's big, and it has a certain angle to it, and it represents the stars in Orion's belt pretty accurately, as you can see. It doesn't stand out so well here, but in other pictures it stands out better. So here, this artist put a sword under Orion's belt. So let's look at what it looks like without any kind of artwork. So you can see Betelgeuse in the top left corner is his shoulder. You can see the belt stands out in the middle. You can see Orion's penis, and Orion's nebula is kind of blurry, that bright area in between. You can see Thabit. You can see those two stars right next to each other at the top middle. And you can see his feet at the bottom. They stand out. So this is like a stick figure of a man. It stands out pretty clearly. And if you look real closely in the top left area, you can see this kind of reddish area. Looks like a sash. It almost stands out even in this picture without any extra intensity or clarification with the camera. That's Bernard's loop. It looks like a sash. So here's a picture of a nebula where stars are born, the place of fertility in the universe. Why is all this being pointed to? What is the message God is giving here? So, look, I want to make this clear right now. Christian scholars and other scholars and scientists, great mathematicians, well-learned, in very high positions, the foremost positions in the scholarly worlds in Scotland and other nations, have done this research long ago. They figured this out. So I'm not trying to claim that this is my work, that I'm the first discoverer of this. I'm not trying to claim anything like that. But what I did do is I verified the work with my own research, and now I'm trying to share it. So I'm standing on the shoulder of giants in this situation. Great, beautiful souls that really believe in God and are really trying to show something. They were very sincere, and they were trying to get the message across the best they could. God help them. I know they ran into a lot of trouble because it takes a lot to overcome one's doubts. Okay, so here we at the top is the Grand Gallery. Underneath that, the Queen's Chamber. You see it, the letter D going down. You see the well shaft, they call it, the pit. It leads to the pit down there at G, subterranean level. The subterranean level has a white background. The pyramid which is above ground. The pyramid is above ground. It has a black background. At the C, you have the red granite plugs. Now, all these terms, these terminologies that I'm using, they came from Smith and Petrie. They're like some of the original pioneering founders who did the measurements and came up with the vocabulary, you know. And the yellow line is showing the entrance passage, also called the descending passage. And here I have all the angles of the measurements that were took. Let's see, the measurement that was took was 26.45. And you could read that in one of their books, Smith or Petrie. And using a right angle calculator, using trigonometry triangle calculators, you can calculate the other angles. So if you extend an imaginary line down to, let's see, down from the casing stone on the outer side of the Great Pyramid, and you extend an imaginary line from the ascending passage between C and D, the ascending passage, and they meet each other at A. They meet each other at the creation date. Now, I have to tell it like it is. Professor Smith took multiple measurements of where the casing stone is, and I can't even recall if I measured from the casing stone or where the casing stone was sitting on, but there were multiple measurements available. So, I chose one of them, the one that happened to fit in with 4004 BC, which is it's one of the well-known creation dates. So I could have chosen like a different data point as well to measure from and gotten a different date. So that's a little fuzzy. But the cool thing here, and I didn't find this, but the cool thing here is that the creation date is given at that intersection point. Whatever that date is. David Davidson did amazing, astounding scholarly work, and he calculated that date using other mathematics and other relationships that, I don't even understand because I haven't taken math at that university level, and he calculated it to be 4000 BC. And, just judging and based on his scholarly work and his material and his level of competence, I would guess that 4000 BC is the creation date that the Great Pyramid is pointing at. So, based on my studies of this internal timeline, I mapped it out and I got all these dates and I put it down. And the neat thing is that these dates, where you have a pyramid inch for a year, which is approximately an inch and a hair long, and you take that for a year and you map it out and you make a calendar out of the Great Pyramid's internal passageways. Well, these dates match up with the Bible, because the Bible it puts out these values very clearly. The value 1260, which we see here at the top of the plug, the red granite plug, it's repeated 9 times. Twice in Revelation, no, 9 times in Revelations and twice in Daniel. It's repeated so much in the Bible in many different ways, and it's obviously about the coming of the promised one. Well, here the value 1260 is 1260 BC, and it's not only chronologically recorded, like a calendar or a timeline in stone, but it's also geometrically recorded in what happened at this time in history. There's a religious event that took place that this is representing. All this is representing something about the covenant, about God's religion. This is all about God's religion throughout time. And some people believe that 1260 BC was when the Exodus took place. It has something to do with Moses. I don't know about that. There are like three top contenders for the Exodus date, and the other one is at the bottom of the intersection point, which is 1512 here. It's listed as 1512 BC. That would seem to be more in alignment with the historical record. But it's the fact that 1260 is even here at such a significant place is important. It means something. Now, if you go 1290 pyramid inches from that point, and you go to the entrance of the Grand Gallery, that entrance there would be 30 AD at the very entrance wall, 30 AD. So this, those are some other data points that really stand out biblically. So in Daniel 9, the value 30 AD significantly stands out as the time when the daily sacrifice ceased. In other words, that's when Jesus began his ministry. So that would occur at the point, like geometrically and spatially, where this cramped ascending passage opens up into a grand gallery that's very high above one's head. It's very beautiful. And that represents that, mankind was freed from sin at that point. Well, it was freed from sin in 34 AD, but that's when it started. That's when Jesus' ministry started. So we were enabled to eat the bread of life and live forever and fall in love with the glory and beauty of Jesus and his teachings at that time. Now, if you go out a little bit from that first wall, there's something that hangs overhead, like a projection. The wall starts leaning forward. Well, if you measure from there, it's 34 AD, and that's when Jesus died on the cross. So this has the range from 30 to 34 AD. And at this point, a little bit after that, where Jesus died on the cross, you have this well shaft descending into the subterranean level where there's this pit. They call it, the Christian scholars liken it to the pit of hell. So this reminds me of in Daniel 9, where it describes and foretells of Jesus when he would die on the cross. It describes it as the word desolate is used a lot, and those who follow him will be desolate. And this is not, I'm not talking about Jesus Christ and his ministry, but those who turn this image of Jesus on the cross into a statue and into an icon of something to be worshipped and venerated, they'll be desolated, because God said very clearly in the 10 Commandments, as they call them, that we're not to use statues and we're not to use images and icons in worship, and that those who use them are going to be cursed for 3 or 4 generations. So the body of Jesus on the cross isn't supposed to be made into another God, as if there were more than one God or more than one persons in God. There's only one God. But there are, pure-hearted Christians in the world who reject the use of images and icons and statues of the crucifix, and they don't use that. And for the true path of Christianity, it continues on up the Grand Gallery, But let's look at the horizontal passage. So the horizontal passage, you can measure from the beginning of the horizontal passage to the end, at the end of the Queen's Chamber. And if you divide that by 3, you get the date that Muhammad began his ministry. And the big thing about 3 is that it's Jesus' 3-day prophecy. He said, destroy the temple, in 3 days it'll be rebuilt. So that room kind of looks like a temple, the Queen's Chamber. Well, 3 days, 3 yoms. The Hebrew word for day is yom, and that means it could be in a year. That could mean a period of time. So in this case, it's quite a long period of time. But within the Queen's Chamber, to verify this relationship, there is a structure called a niche, and it has these shapes about it that can... I'll show it to you later. It's in every Islamic mosque in the world, nearly. So you get to the top of the stairs, and you get the great step. It's difficult to climb up. It's very tall, very great. And that at the bottom corner of it, that's 1844 AD, a value that's prophesied in the Bible at least 12 times. And that's when the Bab began his ministry. The name Bab means gate. And this was a figure like John the Baptist, like Elijah. He came to prepare the people for the coming of him whom God shall make manifest, he called him, who would come shortly. And he was the great promised one of all time, of all religions. He was the great promised one who was going to usher in a great new age. And he referred to him as the Wahid, which means the one, the unity, oneness, but mainly the promised one. And the abjad value of the word, the name Wahid, is 19. So the Bab started a new calendar. They call it the Badi calendar. It's composed of 19 months, makes a year. A month is composed of 19 days, and whatever years are left over are intercalary days on the calendar. But the point is that this calendar draws attention to the value 19, which draws attention to the one, the promised one, the primal point of creation, of the primal reason for existence that creation circles around in the world of heaven, in the world of religious understanding and authority. This one point, the promised one of all time. In Jesus' age, the promised one was Jesus Christ. In Moses' age, the promised one was Moses. Now, this in the year 1863 A.D., that's when Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, began its ministry. And when him whom God shall make manifest, foretold of by the Bab, when he began his ministry. So that point in time is represented by the entrance to the king's chamber by the date 1863 AD. And like I said, the Bab's calendar draws attention to the one, the value 19. So it's always in our consciousness. It's always in our awareness every day. What day is it? What year is it? It's a year based on the value 19. So who is the one? Who is the one of today? That's what life is all about. It's all about discovering who the promised one of is today. That's the ultimate goal. Jesus. They asked Jesus, John 6, what's the greatest thing I can do? The greatest works I can do. And Jesus said, is to believe in the one whom God has sent. That's the ultimate goal in life. I think it's John 6 anyways. Okay, so instead of an inch for a year, like the Christian scholars, they saw that the calendar ran out pretty quickly at this point, and it didn't match up. So what they did is they came up with this concept that time would speed up at this point. 1844, time would speed up because there's a prophecy that says in the end times, Unless the days are going to be shortened, I think everyone would die or something like that. But for the elect's sake, the days will be shortened. So in the time of the end, the days are going to be shortened. That's my humble recollection of that prophecy. But it does say that the days will be shortened. So the Christian scholars figured out that what they did is they divided by 10. So they took 10 inches to a year, and they came up with certain dates that are going to happen. And it's very interesting. They have alternative timelines. But another way of going about this is to take 19 pyramid inches to a year, and that's how you come at the year 1863 AD being the entrance to the King's Chamber. And there's nothing in the King's Chamber but a coffer, they call it. It's a box that has very strong mathematical relationships to the Ark of the Covenant, which also was a box. Okay, so continuing down the entrance passage, you get to the bottom corner. Actually, I'm not sure if it's the bottom corner or the top corner, but the value 1260 BC comes up. I think it's the top corner, actually. But instead of, like, how I got that 1260 is from the point of intersection. You see the point of intersection in the middle. From that point on, going down, you take 12 pyramid inches to a year. So it's a pyramid foot to a year. And then you get 1260 down here. And there's a prophecy that the outer section will be trampled underfoot for 1260. That's a prophecy in Revelation. So this area is trampled underfoot. In particular, that prophecy was about the usurpers of Islam. They trampled the religion of Islam underfoot. And 1260 is a value that has to do with Islam, because in the year 1260 on the Islamic calendar, that's 1844 AD, when the Bab began his ministry. So in a way, 1260 represents the advent of Islam. But it also represents the year that the Bab began his ministry, the coming of the Promised One, the return of Jesus Christ in the name of the gate, the Bab. So here we can see the relationship again from the beginning of the subterranean level to the very end of it. You have 1290 years, approximately, which again is a repetition. Here you have the 1290 from the top of the granite plug, the red granite plug, to the beginning of the Grand Gallery, 1290. And the reason 1290 is so important is because Jesus referred in Matthew 24, he referred to a place in Daniel where Daniel talks about 1290 years. And this is all about when Jesus will return and when the time of the end will be. That's what this is all about. That's what the disciples were asking Jesus in Matthew 24, where he refers them to the value 1290 in Daniel. That's at the end of Daniel. So that's why this is important. That's why this is significant. The pyramid points it out twice. And if you go to the very end of the subterranean level, that's underground, like in hell, you have, so this is the path that represents like corrupted Christianity. Every religion of God was corrupted at one point. Islam was corrupted by the usurpers, those who rejected and fought against Ali and the 12 Imams, Muhammad's true successors. That's Shia Islam. That's the true path. But the usurpers is the other path. And here, as far as the Christian path, there are those who use statues and icons and believe that, Jesus is another God. aside from the one true God. So this is the path for the corrupted version of Christianity and corrupted teachings that have been added onto it. And it ends in a dead-end path here in the subterranean level. That's what this represents. It ends at the very end of this shaft. And there are projections at the very end of this that are 4 inches long. And this is recorded in Smith and Petrie's work. These actual projections are there on the wall. They stick out 4 inches. And if you look at the base of it, you get 34 AD. And if you go to the very tips of the projection, it's 30 AD when Jesus began his ministry. And 34 AD is when Jesus died on the cross. And over here, it's cut off, but there's a pit that's supposed to represent hell, according to the Christian scholars. So that's what all this represents. It's all quite fascinating and amazing. The religion of God doesn't end here at the end of the wall in the King's Chamber is 1874. It doesn't end there, but there is a air shaft that goes upwards. And there's also a vertical space that points upwards, interestingly enough. Looks like a giant arrow, actually. And if you look at the giant arrow of the Queen's Chamber, it's actually a line in such a way where it's pointing right to the promised one of the Bab in 1844 AD. So this is all covenant material. This is all about God's plan, God's guidance to mankind, so we can all recognize the promised one. That's what this was all about. There's a picture of the red granite plug. Edgar's dropping a plumb line. There's another picture of, looks like the red granite plug. That's Al-Mamun's entrance that he blasted into the side of the pyramid. He didn't use the door. He blasted an entrance into the entrance passage. We'll see what that says. Someone named Judah is standing along the forced entranceway that Caliph Al-Mamun blasted through in the year 820. And the Great Pyramid of Giza is showing the upper butt end of the granite plug. How about that? This is showing where these things were located. Like the bottom of the Queen's Chamber here at the bottom of the screen is the 25th level of the Great Pyramid. The 25th step. And the top is the 35th, like 3 days and a half, 1260. It's related. It's prophecy. Prophecy's everywhere in this. The 50th level is at the Great Step. That would be the 50th step. That would be the foundation of the King's Chamber, the Antechamber, and the Great Step. And you have this 25th level being half of the 50th level. The number 25 pops up a lot for some reason. So you actually have a minor great step, like a lesser step, stepping down before you get to the Queen's Chamber. And if you draw a line, an imaginary line, from the floor of the Queen's Chamber all the way across, according to this scholar, and you measure from the imaginary line from the north wall, the entrance of the Grand Gallery, it's 34 pyramid inches long, or inches, and that comes to, well, that's the date that Jesus died on the cross, 34 AD. So if you make a triangle here, you have the Christ triangle. You have some interesting numbers that pop out. They call it the Christ triangle. Here's a picture of the lesser step. Someone standing in front of it in the horizontal passage. Here's a picture of the niche in the wall in the Queen's Chamber that represents Islam. And this niche, a very similar structure, can be found in most of the Muslim mosques all over the world. shaped very similarly. They're both holes in the wall, a hole in the wall of the Muslim mosque, a hole in the wall of the Queen's Chamber. And oh, by the way, it's offset from the center of the room 25 pyramid inches. That number 25, something about it, something sacred about it. The pyramid scholars they've reasoned that 25 pyramid inches represents the initial value of the sacred cubit. Now here's a picture of the Edgar brothers. One of them's sitting down on some rubble in the niche. Someone tried to dig a tunnel into the back of the niche to see if he could find some gold or something, and he just made a big rubble pile. And so you can see this is a very real thing. And in fact, in many of the Muslim mosques, in their niche, there's a little area in the back towards the bottom of the niche used to store the Quran. Or for some reason, whatever reason, there's a little area back there that matches this pretty exactly. It's quite miraculous how well that represents Islam. Because remember, at the very end of the Queen's Chamber, that represents the year when Muhammad began his ministry, very clearly. So we were talking about the Christ triangle a little bit earlier. Let's not skip over that. So these are the numbers that stand out to me. Like, they maybe give or take a little bit, because Jesus didn't die in 34 AD exactly. He died in March, somewhere in March, during Passover. That's when Passover occurs. So there is a little fraction adjustable. But yeah, these numbers are what one can calculate from an exact 34 AD and using a trigonometric right triangle calculator. 14 and a half up. 90 degrees would be that angle. 90 being a right triangle, because this is the age of righteousness, is maybe talking about righteousness, the day of righteousness, the robe of righteousness. It comes up a lot in prophecy. 30 and a half pyramid inches long is the triangle. That's when Jesus began his ministry. 34 inches is when Jesus died on the cross, approximately 34 AD. Now the number 90, I'm not sure what that represents. Maybe it represents something we haven't discovered yet. Maybe it's in the past. Who knows? But I think it's possible it just represents righteousness, because you want to be right. You want to be straight up and down with the plumb line. And the other value that's not written here is it's around 26 and a fraction, or 27. 27 AD is when Jesus began his ministry, and the other value up here at the top would be 63 degrees when Baha'u'llah began his ministry. So you have 27 degrees, 27 ADs when Jesus began his ministry, but you have 26 to 27 degrees, or 26 and a fraction. So this isn't exact, this is a little, you can adjust this. Different measurements were given for the angles, so you can move it around a little bit. As you'll see if you look at Smith and Petrie's recording of the angle of the ascending passage, various numbers are given, but they're very near each other. It's all around 26 and a fraction degrees. I'd be surprised if I didn't include that number here. 26.4 degrees. That's one of the more common ones. But 26 and a half or 26.3 might be in there too. Okay, so this is showing how the Earth spins on an axis, which everyone's familiar with. Now that axis is slowly turning, and in approximately 25,000 years, 25,827 years, it completes a revolution. They call it a great year. They call it the precession of the equinox. And the Great Pyramid has this number, 25,827, in it in different places. And there's a lot to go into. But there is a very clear way that number very possibly points to the year 1844 AD as well. I'm not going to get into all that. You see the two largest lines in the Great Pyramid at the base, the diagonals? You add those up and you get that number, 25,827 pyramid inches. So here I showed, like, I make a little diagram and show the different points that can be labeled. And these are the names of those different points. And these are the dates that they can represent. And the numbers in Smith and Petrie's books of where they have their measurements so that you can arrive at those dates exactly. But yeah, they represent these values repeatedly. 1260, 30 to 34 AD. It's just miraculous. This is very sacred. As far as that value 1853, I don't know if that's accurate. It seems it's difficult to discuss. But these dates here are represented in different places. The Bab was martyred in 1850, very shortly after he began his ministry, and that point is during the entrance passage. Bab means gate, and this is the entrance to the gateway to the antechamber. And there is a structure in the antechamber. It's like the gate chamber. You crawl through this tiny little narrow area, and as soon as you enter this chamber, you can stand up, and you have this red. Here it's marked red, but this beautiful carving that's standing out of the wall. They call it the embossment, or just the boss, using the terminology of Smith and Petrie, and it's shaped like some sort of rainbow, something like a rainbow or a moon or something like that. But even the top of the structure that holds the boss is kind of shaped like a rainbow. Huh. They call it a granite leaf. That's what holds it. So this is showing, like, some of it's granite, some of it's just limestone that's really, brittle and not very strong. But it seems like the granite sections are very sacred. Huh. Now, all this 1853, 1849, all these years are using 19 pyramid inches to a year. And this is showing that, according to the measurements of these scholars, the pyramid is 50 cubits square at its base. 50 cubits, 500 cubits square at its base. And if you look in the text of the Bible, the temple was also 500 cubits square. So this matches up with the great temple written about in the Bible. Let's read this. The great, the mighty God, the Lord of hosts, is his name, great in counsel and mighty in work. This is all about the mighty God. For thine eyes are open upon all the ways of the sons of men, to give every one according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings, which hast set signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, even unto this day. Jeremiah 32:20. Praise God. And they refer to this embossment as the ornament also. This is the primal point, this ornament. They say it is well to call prominent notice to the raised ornament on the upper of the two stones, a most unique thing, certainly, throughout the whole of the Great Pyramid. That's Professor Piazzi Smith who wrote that. Ah, yeah. So, here I wrote about the boss. There's a quote in the Bible: "Establish judgment in the gate," in Amos. He was standing in the gateway with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand, Ezekiel 42. So this is saying, like, to me, is saying you put the measurement standard, the judgment standard at the gate, the entranceway. And in this case, it's the embossment, because the embossment stuck out from the granite leaf 1 inch, 1 pyramid inch. So it's like, this is the unit of measure throughout the whole pyramid. This is sacred. And it's at the area of the Bab, right after the Bab. So it's in the gate. Very sacred. See how he has to climb the wall and crawl through the entrance and stands up, and lo and behold, there it is. It's like God saying, "Hey, look at this." The big red flag, big signal. This is important. And the air chamber has a rainbow-shaped structure as well, leading out to it. Here's a picture of the boss. Very poor quality, but that's what was available. It's shaped like a rainbow. It sticks out a pyramid inch. That's the judgment standard. Those are the pictures I have to share. I suppose the big question on everyone's mind is, of all the things for the air shafts to point to, why would it point to the region of a snake's penis, or the penis of this constellation Orion? Why is his shoulder red? What's this all about? Why is he holding a rainbow, which is the symbol of the covenant in Genesis, the book of Genesis? After the great flood, God gave Noah as a symbol of the covenant between God and man, the rainbow, the bow, it's referred to. Well, it's to draw attention, in my humble opinion, it's to draw attention to the fact that, let's see, Abraham's lineage was blessed. And the blessing went to Isaac and it went to Ishmael. These great blessings. The founders of God's great religions: Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all of them. The Baha'i faith, Hinduism. Some of these religions are so old that they've been so corrupted, they've added so many gods to it, you can't tell that it was originally about the one true God. And some of the teachings are so corrupted that you can't tell what the religion was about at all. I didn't name all of them. But, originally these religions came from the lineage of Father Abraham. Abraham means father of many nations. And it's his seed, his sperm that were in his testicles. This is what was blessed. And these are the religions and the people who descended from this seed. Jesus Christ, Muhammad, the Bab, Baha'u'llah, Buddha, Moses, Zoroaster, Krishna, all of these great teachers throughout history, they came from Father Abraham. And this lineage can be traced. It's proven. Scholars have proved it. Baha'i scholars, Mirza Abu Fadl, and other scholars have shown this. So, if you go down this lineage, now, Abraham had two sons. One was Ishmael. That's where Islam and the Bab descended from. And the other one was Isaac. Isaac was the chosen line. The chosen line went to Isaac. They both had blessings, but the chosen one went to Isaac. Now, you go further down Isaac's lineage, and you get to King David. And King David also had very special blessings given to him and his seed. And the seed is basically, that's the word that means sperm, and that's located in the testicles. And that's what this is pointing to. It even points to one of his testicles, Thabit. And it is this that was blessed. So, according to the Bible prophecies about the Messiah, this messianic line, this sperm descendancy would come from King David. And if you want to be exact and literal, it's going to come from his testicles. So there is Bible prophecy that states very clearly that the scepter, the ruling scepter, is going to be between his legs. And this is why the Holy Bible opens up. The very first thing you see when you read the New Testament is this lineage showing how Jesus was descended from King David. And in Luke 3, it gives an accurate family tree as well, showing this relationship. I think it's Luke 3. It's around Luke 3:23. That's also where it says that Jesus began his ministry when he was 30 years old. Very important fact, foundational. But the Jews still, they understand this, and they know this. This is the meaning of the Messiah. If you go look it up in Wikipedia, you have the Christian meaning, which seems to have anything to do with Jesus Christ, and then you have the Jewish meaning, which is accurate. The full title is Messiah ben David, which means it's the messianic son of King David. And Messiah, the word Messiah means anointed. It's enlightened. When King David became anointed king, I think it was Samuel, he took like a horn of oil, and the horn is a symbol of kingship, and the oil the symbol of enlightenment, and he enlightened David. He smeared this oil on David's body and blessed him, and he became king. I mean, he was to become king, and he was a good, righteous king, a very holy person, and he lived to please God. And his name, I think it means beloved. You know, he's just a beloved soul. When you read about him, learn about him, he's such a beautiful man, and he wanted to please God so much. And as a result of all this, you know, God blessed him. He blessed his descendants. So that's where it's at. It's the family tree of King David, and in particular, the ruling bloodline. The male king and his sperm down to the next male king, and down on through the sperm descendancy all the way down. So Baha'u'llah is a messianic descendant of King David through the sperm descendancy, or also called through the bloodline. This family tree can be traced all the way up to King David. And at one time in history, someone, like an evil king, was jealous, and he saw the prophecies that the Christians had, and he wanted his lineage to be the great king of the world. So he killed all of King David's descendants except for one. He had a dream that told him, don't kill this one. After he'd killed all the other ones, the dream told him, don't kill this one. And that's actually Baha'u'llah's ancestor. It's amazing. It's just miraculous. You got to look at the family tree of King David. It's fascinating. And there are prophecies in here that state that this lineage, there will always be someone to sit on the throne of King David. There's always going to be this messianic lineage to rule the world. So that throne exists And Baha'u'llah fulfilled this prophecy. And he passed down this descendancy to his son, Abdul Baha. You see, this is all recorded in the covenant, the book of the covenant in the Baha'i faith. To learn more about this, you should read the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah. And then when Abdul Baha died, he read about the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha, how this covenant continues even to this day. It's the most miraculous and wondrous thing. This is the religion of the Baha'i faith. And that's what this is pointing to. It's the covenant. As far as the red shoulder, I've noticed other relationships also. Between various things that have been found. You see, if you look above this being's shoulder, there is the three dots, like it may be arranged like the three stars in Orion's belt that stand out. This crop circle was found and a message was given in it. It has been decoded with standard ANSI code. I don't recall the full message 100%. Beware the bearer of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. And then a comma or a ding, one or the other. And you have the one eye. So that's just something that stands out. Like, where did that come from? And what's that about? And how's that? Why is there the three stars of Orion? So, we oppose deception. That was in there also. And in that message, if you look closely, thanks. In that message, the values 66 and 69 have what some people call an error, but may also be interpreted as they're highlighted, those ASCII values. This is known to be a forgery and a fake. But it's a fascinating similarity to the crop circle. This was copied down from rock art that was found in a cave. They have the checkerboard squares on the ground level, some sort of alien-like spacesuit, pyramidal-shaped mountains. Looks like Quetzalcoatl, half of his face up there. Some sort of breathing tube apparatus, perhaps a space helmet, an angel's wing instead of a shoulder. And he's also holding up the disc. You have the enlightened hand sign there, whatever those are called, mudras, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's related. But everything about this online says that this is a forgery. So who knows where this really came from. Okay, so let's look at the constellation Orion. NASA's taken some great pictures of it. This one shows Bernard's Loop a lot better. Here you can see that this red sash, it really stands out. Now, in the Bible, the red sash is worn by the high priest. The high priest. The one who was allowed in the Holy of Holies. So this is powerful symbolism here. And the head stands out much more here. It's much more globe-like. Betelgeuse is brilliant here. The red star that represents his right shoulder. It looks like he has some sort of sacrificial dagger. The high priest would make the sacrifice to free the Jews from sin. It's so beautiful. But remember, this is not to be worshipped. Stars aren't to be worshipped. Nothing in heaven or earth is to be worshipped but God. This is a sign that the Great Pyramid of Egypt points to. Here you can see the bow a little better. Look at that bow. Look how well defined it is. Top right hand corner. Those stars. It's a perfect bow. He's just aiming up. It's so gorgeous. Now, if you take a human being and you have his anatomical proportions of a human body and you match it up with this constellation, everything matches up exactly. Where the bow should be, that's where it would be if this guy had an arm. And on the other side, if he had his arm stretched out, there looks like there's a CD-ROM or some sort of disc that's lit up. That's exactly anatomically where it would be. It's just miraculous, isn't it? Now you can zoom in. You can zoom into this this image here with a disc and get a better picture. But to me, it looks like there's someone standing up, holding out a CD-ROM, and he has a great big horn on his head and an eye that's really well lit up. You can get a lot more detail in this image. You see his 2 feet at the bottom, and he has an erection. This is amazing. These images are so perfect and so beautiful, taken by NASA's telescopes. It's just fantastic. I love it. And who knew? It's all about the covenant of God. It's all a guide, a sign. It's like God pointing his finger, back to the true way, the true path, the true teachings of God. Look at the teachings of Baha'u'llah. They stand in such stark contrast to the oppressive forces in the world today. You'll see for yourself. See with your own eyes. All the prophecies, they match up with the Great Pyramid of Egypt, with these wondrous signs in the heavens. And if you look at the first page of the Bible, it tells you that the lights in the sky, they're for signs, perhaps for wonders, miraculous signs. In particular, the sun and the moon.